it is kind of making meaning out of meaningless sounds, but that's kind of what music always has been. But my point is that like it builds a culture around it, and that's kind of what art always has done and always will do. It's like a response to culture and a building of culture. Like language change is it's always changing. It has always changed, and although it may be occurring more rapidly in the digital age on social media, it's changing, it's not disappearing.
It's so dystopian to be like, I'm telling a robot that I'm not a robot.
And it's like, I don't believe you.
We're busting philosophy out of the old stuffy lecture hall and setting it loose on the world of creativity. Join us as we explore the unwritten aesthetic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Unwritten Aesthetic. Lauren, it's so good to see you. It's been
good to see you too. It has
some time, and I'm excited to be
some
talking philosophy and art and aesthetics and seeing your face and chatting.
Oh, likewise. Yeah, it's been too long. January was busy, but I missed it. I missed the podcast.
Yes, me too. Okay, well,
and you of course. I mean, that's kind of it's kind of a given, you know. It's not like, oh, you I didn't miss, but the podcast. No. So it's like there's kind of
recording
a
conversations. Yeah. Well, you sent me over our little break, our little mini break, a few Instagram reels that were really interesting. And then you said you just found another one. And they're all kind of discussing like the future of creativity, maybe. How would you describe this like category that these creators are talking about, and why did they strike you?
Yeah, I mean, both of them seem to be predictions for trends, mostly in visual art. I think the first one was more all-encompassing, so music, performing arts probably as well. But just kind of predictions of what's to come, and a lot of them have these underlying themes of AI and AI art kind of coming in, and obviously that's already radically changing how people make art and what sort of art people think is worthwhile. It's changing how people value art, you know, if they think it's real human-made art or not.
Right.
That's kind of a whole mini tangent and not really the main through line of these videos, but they kind of stuck out to me because I think parts of them aligned with what I've naturally been doing already, and maybe didn't really notice that my changing artistic practices and like motifs that I was gravitating towards aligned with like a larger pattern in how other artists were doing things, because I don't spend too much time on social media. But maybe I should. Maybe I should spend more time on social media so I could.
I think
no, I'm kidding. But
it's interesting to think about like how to be in the know in an artful sense almost does require some like social media presence, which we've both talked about as like a really difficult portion of
sword.
Right, of being
at least
a creative,
to see, like,
but
yeah, I mean, at least to see like the big overarching trends, especially today, like in the digital age, trends do come and go at a quicker pace than they used to, just because everyone can see them and everyone can participate in them, and it can just turn over presumably quicker than back in the day. So I mean, you could kind of stay in the know by just like going to galleries and stuff, but it would probably take longer to realize, you know.
Yeah, that was gonna be my other thought, is like I think galleries are probably more, maybe not more inaccessible, but I think it feels like less of an option to people because there's so much online now, and also like Of course, there's lots of free museums, but a lot of museums you have to pay to get entry into, at least in the United States. I think in other parts of the world, it's actually art tends to be more accessible than it does here, or here for me. But I think also in terms of like up and coming like trends and
Mm-hmm.
major motifs, it's harder to stay in the know with like um that may not be as like broadly talked about in like the cultural movement, as opposed to like, no, there is a movement of like underground artists that are
Yeah.
returning to this form or whatever, that it would be harder to pick up on too, I think, just based on like the barrier to entry that traditional gallery settings may have, that social media is a
Yeah.
good portion of, like a good part of social media, but like you said, the double-edged
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of another double-edged sword is on the one hand, like I used to do a lot of like stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
like the distorted sort of portraits, and I noticed like a couple years ago those started to get more popular. Like I was seeing other people do portraits in a similar style, and it did make me not want to paint them as much.
Mm.
Um, and so on the one hand, it's like this uh experience that I'm sure is common to many artists and non-artists alike, which is the desire to be original somehow. Whether that's actually possible is a whole other topic in itself,
Yeah.
but sort of that on the one hand, and then on the other hand, it is really fascinating to kind of see history happening and see,
Yeah.
even though like the artistic movements in question are a lot more condensed. Maybe it's not like a decade, it's like a couple years or even just a year. But I feel like I'm witnessing those historical movements happening.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. And yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know if there's an equivalent version of this for you with more like writing, or because I'm not really on that side of
Yeah. I
social
would say
media.
it's definitely true of, well, it's interesting with like podcasting as a medium, in
Mm.
that like it's just so new as a medium in and of itself, that I think it's still kind of finding what it is. So have there been like eras within podcasting? Absolutely. But I think more than anything, it's been like branches and pockets that kind of happen at the same time. Um, and now there's so much like breadth of what you can do with a podcast, whether that be like an audio form, like narrative storytelling that's like soundscapes and actors that are like playing out something, but it's in a podcast format, or like investigative journalism is an entirely different format that's like very popular in the podcasting space. And then stuff like this that's just like long form conversations, and then you have interviews. So I think because it's so new with this specific medium, I almost view it as like little mini discoveries of just like what it is to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with other like maybe like intellectual creative things, I absolutely feel this like just rapid acceleration of creation, that it's just like exactly like you're saying, like movements
Mm-hmm.
are not even like
Yeah,
they're
sometimes they don't even form. It's
right.
just
It's
it
like they
just keeps
fail
going.
before they form, or they're so like merged into one another that it's really hard to decide like what's the difference between um I don't know. I can't, like, no examples are necessarily coming to mind, but maybe even like skit comedy that we're seeing versus like parody comedy that you see, right? That it's like they're so similar, but also there's a difference that I feel, but it's because it's evolved so quickly in the way that we see it online. And I think that's just because of the rapid engagement with audience and the
Mm.
dialogue that's happening there. But it's almost like movements are just merging and melding together. And I think that's kind of true of everything. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I mean, speaking from experience, I do feel like just being on social media, like sharing my art on social media, has increased the rate at which my artistic style changes. I wouldn't say in a bad way, and it's not because I'm, painting things to appeal to my target audience. It's
Right.
mostly because sharing it overall has been an encouraging experience.
Mm.
And so it's almost like a way of holding myself accountable, and being like,
Yeah.
there's people that I want to share this with, and so I should keep painting, even if it's just like a
Yeah.
little practice thing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but
I
that's kind of a
think
side point.
Yeah. I think also there's more of an ability to find an audience for work that maybe previously, like, there was no pocket for. You had to
True.
meet something a little bit more standardized, and that allows for more variation within movements too,
Yeah, true,
perhaps.
true.
So, well, let's watch these two videos, or maybe we'll watch one and talk about it and then watch the other and talk about it. But we're going to play these. Of course, we'll link the original versions in the show notes down below, wherever you are
Movie
listening or
time.
watching. Movie time. But that way we can all kind of watch this together. And this is our first one from Ghost in the Sam. And of course, like I said, we'll link the original down below. And a huge thank you to Ghost in the Sam for this video.
The meaning of symbols, all that remains is personal interpretation. Shared meaning and imagery is collapsing, and I believe abstract, non-representational art forms are poised to take off as a result. Think generative, screensaver-like visuals, ambient music, nonsense lyrics and dialogue,
Eat zucchini? Why?
and generally just more non-fiction. We're living in a moment where everything feels manipulated, and culture is responding in predictable ways by simplifying and relying on even heavier handed symbols, and by going offline in search of sensory truth. But there's a third option, which I think we'll see more and more of, which is a retreat into abstraction. After all, if images and words no longer convey consistent meaning, why use them properly or refer to them at all? Abstraction can offer specific remedies for this current moment. One is just cognitive overload from having to clock and decode everything correctly. Its relative understimulation can be soothing. Two is that it individualizes meaning making, becoming this ultimate, unimpeachable form of my view is as good as any other. Three is it can be read a variety of ways as expression becomes higher stakes. On one hand, it can be this form of aesthetic sedation, purely decorative, existing only to make power more palatable. On the other, I don't think that human desire to express ourselves ever truly goes away. It's worth remembering abstract art has a pretty radical heritage, and at its best, it can be this really powerful way to return to first principles and subvert expectations. And because it is non representational, there's this built in plausible deniability. Expression survives in censored cultures because of discretion, and as symbolic meaning declines, abstraction may start to feel like a more and more useful tool for staying honest. When we no longer agree on the meaning of symbols.
So that is our first video. Do you want to go ahead and watch the second, or do we want to chat about this a little bit first?
We could chat a little bit about this first.
Yeah, let's do that, because I think there's a lot here.
Yes.
Yeah, so what was it about this specifically that, so you just sent this one to me and was like, could be an interesting discussion topic, and
Mhm.
immediately I agreed, but I want to know, like, at what point in the video were you like, ooh, this is an important thing to talk about and this is saying something?
As for what point, I'm not exactly sure, but there were parts of it that I found, like, viscerally disagreeable, and then other parts that I was like, yeah, okay. And that, like, if I'm doing philosophy, those are usually the types of works that I want to write on, because there's something that if I find something like immediately disagreeable, that usually means that it's challenging my preconceived notions of whatever in a usually significant way. And not in a way that I was like, this is baseless, this makes no sense, but that there was something there. And I think, I don't know, I kind of had an issue with it because it's not that we disagree on the meanings of symbols. Like, language change is it's always changing. It has always changed, and although it may be occurring more rapidly in the digital age on social media, it's changing, it's not disappearing. And even if the linguistic communities that share those symbolic meanings, maybe they're smaller, maybe they're larger, because on social media more people can access, for example, like slang terms that otherwise, like if they weren't living in the US, for example, why would they know that slang term? But
Right.
like when I was teaching English here in Germany, there was like very specific US slang terms that my German students knew and used because they were on social media and they followed like US streamers. So I wouldn't say that just because the format of like public discourse is predominantly technological and like social, that doesn't automatically mean that there is no shared meaning in symbols. Now,
Right.
that's like linguistic symbols. And maybe there's something to be said about like a feeling of language change happening more quickly and sort of a corresponding desire to want to express oneself in non-linguistic ways. But I feel like that sort of like crisis of language, like that's been happening since that Lord Chandos letter that we read, like way back, like German romanticist poets were talking about this.
Yeah.
So it's not a new problem, it's not a new impulse to feel like I can't fully express myself in language. Let me try these other non-linguistic, more artistic means.
Yeah.
So that's at least my thought on the sort of degradation of shared symbolic meaning.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So I'll be honest, when I first watched this, I was like not a lot of immediate qualms for me with the argument. So it's interesting that we had that different kind of gut reaction to it. Because I agree with everything that you're saying, and I agree with this idea that like there is still universal meaning making, or at least some sort of agreed upon symbolism that things do carry. I think in the examples that Sam uses and puts on screen, like a lot of them are political news coverage examples. And there is absolutely a broader disagreement in terms of like what different coverage means, what different representation means. And I wonder if there is like an extrapolation she's making between like we're getting more and more polarized as to what truth in and of itself is versus this like language crisis, and maybe the term like symbol or symbolic understanding isn't necessarily the most accurate, or she's making an extrapolation to the symbolism piece, because I do agree with what you're saying, and that there are still consistent meanings that I think we can find. And even then, I think maybe this idea of consistent meaning is just changing. Like, I think in some sense, like, deconstructing the idea that there is a universal meaning that we all should kind of adhere to. Like, deconstructing that is probably positive in a lot of ways, because that universal meaning probably adheres to a certain sense of like academia, which inherently would be like privileged, straight, white, all of that good stuff. That's like, no, we want all of these different experiences to be a part of a coherent understanding of experience. And so making it more and more expansive and less specific, I think is a positive
like
change.
Encouraging multiplicity and like how what people see as meaningful. Yeah, no, but I do think you're absolutely right that I latched onto the symbolic part of that, and I was like, wait a minute. But no, I do think you're right to point out that the video's focus does seem to be more so like political symbol, like it was like the Sydney Sweeney, the jeans commercial, and like I think there was like a picture of Trump in there or something.
And
And
there was also the new slogan, which I think actually the slogan would maybe argue against this Sam's thesis because it's the slogan. Oh goodness, it was
For
a slogan.
jeans? For the jeans?
No, that the American government just released a new slogan for a certain department, and I'm gonna forget what it
Oh.
is.
Well, isn't the Department of isn't the what is it that one is like the Department of Defense is now like the Department of War or something?
Yes, which
Is that what it is?
Yes. And to be fair, I do
not
think
funny.
that's probably a more accurate
It is
titling.
more accurate. It is actually.
However, it is scary. Oh, here it
They're
is.
embracing it, and that's
Right, right.
should we not? I guess it's transparency, which we don't get much of from
I know,
the U.S.
but it's
government.
like
So
also saying the quiet part out loud in a really scary way.
yeah, where it's like, yeah, we're causing trouble overseas.
We're doing war. It's actually not about
It's really cool.
The smoke screen of causing interference in other countries and destabilizing other countries has always been we're defending ourselves.
Yeah,
and now
and
it's
maybe we get some oil in the meantime, but for the most part, we're defending ourselves.
Don't worry about the oil. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about my family members that have
that will benefit tremendously
directly from like maybe my name's not attached, but all these people with the same last
but my
name as
family
me,
member, my direct family members.
Don't worry about where their stocks are. It's fine.
God.
But it's the Department of Homeland Security just released a new slogan that is, I want to get this
I bet
right.
It's ridiculous.
While
you're looking for that, I will say that this is something I've been thinking about separately, but the example of sort of ambient or like hyper pop music, I have felt for a while that hyper pop and like whatever types of like weird digital sound art music is reflective of the current state of things. 'Cause it's just like an avalanche of sounds and information. It's like hyper stimulation, but make it a song. And that's kind of unrelated, but I don't necessarily think that is reflective of a loss of meaning, because oftentimes, at least with hyperpop, they do usually belong to a specific subculture or like there is a subculture corresponding to it. So if anything, it's not making I guess it is kind of making meaning out of meaningless sounds, but that's kind of what music always has been.
Right.
But
well,
my
it's
point
like,
is that like
what...
it builds a culture around it, and that's kind of what art always has done and always will do. It's like a response to culture and a building of culture. They're like co-constitutive.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I think too, like, to your point that that's kind of what music has always been. It's like, and also that's kind of what the meaning making project has always been. Like, of course, we both have a predisposition to like starting with the kind of existentialist project of like a nihilistic understanding that this life is inherently meaningless, and then we make meaning out of it. But it's like that is kind of, in a logical, analytical sense, where we have to begin philosophically. And then if we're making meaning out of something, like, what makes these sounds more random and weird than any other music that's ever been created, except that there's now like a bar to measure it against this is outside of the norm of what has previously been created. And one thing to that point, I have a few friends that are really into EDM music, and it's not my thing. I enjoy going and dancing and moving my body in crazy ways to loud music. Like, that's just fun. Sure. But I'm not a huge part of that community, that culture, that subculture that like, even though EDM is such a broad category in and of itself, so I hope I'm not being
people are going to be so mad at
I know.
People are going to be so mad at you, Reese. No.
All of the subcultures of EDM are going to come at me in the comments. But
no, I don't think so.
I remember like listening to one of my friends talk about how this one DJ was sampling this certain track that wasn't like, obviously I know what sampling is because we understand like how Ice Ice Baby samples under pressure, right? Like we we have a cultural understanding of that. But she was talking about how it was like sampling an electronic track from this other DJ from like a year ago, and that they're having this conversation back
Cool.
and forth in this new song. And I was like, and it's just through beats. And she was like, yes, but if you understand the relationship that these artists have to one another and how they like respect each other but do things differently, like this was just such a good like.
Yeah, it's like a dialogue.
Right. And I was like, I never
Cool.
would have known that, because to me, it just sounds like beats, right? It
Yeah.
just sounds like frequencies. But
Mhm.
when she's an indoctrinated member of the in-group. So, or maybe
Yeah.
not indoctrinated, but like
No.
initiated, you
No,
know,
yeah.
like
it does sometimes in order to see. I mean, I am a fan of metal music, and there is kind of this point, like a threshold that you pass, where before it's just like, this sounds like you put a bunch of instruments in a blender and it's
Right.
it's hurting my ears, this is terrible. And then once you pass that and you can like appreciate the intricacies and the timing and like the how connected and mindful all the band members need to
Right.
be, especially like live performances,
yeah.
to do like, yeah. And so it does kind of, it seems as if there are certain like subcultures where from the outside it does seem like maybe not meaningless, but doesn't mean anything to
Random.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then once you have like the relevant background knowledge or some understanding of the subculture itself, then the meaning can shine forth from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you
So
find that
I
slogan,
did
by the
find
way?
this. And this is an example that she uses in the video. But so in January, the Department of Labor used the slogan, "One homeland, one people, one heritage. Remember who you are, American." Well,
Immigrants?
American.
We're immigrants.
Right? Like one people, one
One
heritage.
heritage.
Like that
Yikes.
seems odd. And critics, extremism experts, and
literally
historians
literally not
identified
one heritage.
like
what the fuck?
literally
literally
no.
not false. Actually false.
And also there is the
That's crazy.
Nazi era slogan, "One leader, one people, one realm," that a lot of people were like, okay, that seems pretty similar, and I don't know if I like that very much.
Well, even if the slogans didn't have like, oh, it's the same sort of structure. I mean, saying like one heritage, one, because that's just like, that's not how the USA happened.
Right.
We're a country
Right.
of immigrants.
Or one homeland. Like one heritage, one homeland.
Yeah.
Like one people is maybe the only one you can make an
that's
argument
the only
for.
one that feels like, yeah, we're
like
one
we
people
all came together and established
for
a new
freedom
culture.
and bald
right.
eagles.
And oil.
And oil.
Right. But it's
Oh,
like
God.
you could make an argument for that. But heritage
One
and
heritage and homeland.
homeland,
Nah.
no. And
No, the
with
messaging is
that-
very clear there.
right.
Right.
And so to me, seeing that in this video is actually like, I think that's actually an example of how collectively we all actually kind of understood what that symbol meant. Like when we heard those words, we, of course, there were polarized reactions. And of course, there are groups of people that are like, yeah, that's correct. We're like this. And I would argue that that's deeply racist and unhistrionic.
Unhistrionic?
Is that
histrionic? I think it means overreacting.
Oh, okay. So
Right?
not the right word at all. I have no idea. It's unhistoric. It's counter to history is kind of what I'm trying to say. So I think people who agree with that, it just loudly communicates like racism and a disagreement with history. But there was also a broad swath of people that were like, no, we all agree on what this means. And I think both ends of the spectrum agree on what that phrasing means. One end of the spectrum is just happy with that phrasing. The
Yeah,
other
they're
end of the
just totally
spectrum is
buying
not.
into the racist propaganda, and the other side is like, actually, did y'all
That's
take
bad.
inspiration from, which slogan are you taking your inspiration from here, guys? No,
Right.
so maybe it's like less an issue of language change, because there's like lots of slang and like, you know, that changes pretty quickly. For the most part,
Yeah.
though, and then also always things are open to interpretation, like in this
Yes.
example. But for the most part, it's not like it's not getting to a point where I'm talking to you like this and these basic words suddenly we have no shared meaning.
Right.
Like, there's arguably never one-to-one shared interpretation of the same words, but there is
Yeah.
a shared general meaning enough to where we can have a conversation.
Yeah, there is the kind of, I'm going to forget the exact title of this philosophy, but this idea that like two people walk into a room and can build an
Oh.
entire understanding of what this room is, what it's comprised of, what the colors are, what the like measurements of it are, the dimensions, and could build like a pretty solid science around this room. Like they would have a mutual mathematical understanding of it. However, we know that they still are going to have had slightly different experiences.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like, despite the fact that like, yes, there is, in this like completely subjective sense, no way to escape total subjectivity, we do know that there is a like barrier to no ultimate truth. Like there are certainly agreed upon truths that we all still have within subjectivity. One thing that to kind of speak to what you said about the AI art in the beginning, but I think also this layers in the political commentary. But one thing that Sam said that really resonated with me was that everything feels manipulated right now. And I think that's
really?
something
I didn't
that
even hear that part.
I wrote
should
down
listen
this
more
quote.
closely.
No, that's okay. That's
I
this
feel
is
like
our close
anytime I'm
listening
watching
right
short
now.
form content, I'm just like, my eyes just kind of glaze over, and I'm like, which is why it was so nice to find this one, because I was like, yeah, this is like an interesting conversation starter. You know?
Absolutely. I think it's very well done. And also
A
the way she
diamond in the
structures
rough.
it is like very thorough structuring. So yes, I agree. But this exact quote is, everything feels manipulated and culture is responding in predictable ways.
Oh yeah. The predictable ways yes, okay, so this is where the AI thing came in, because I recently have been starting like a new series of paintings of my hands as like a faceless portrait, because my hands are like notoriously like, I have like old man hands, and like my hands get cold and like discolored and weird. So
say your hands are like a rainbow of experience.
Literally, no, I get to use all the colors that I own, basically.
That's kind of so cool.
And all the, like, I used to be super self-conscious of my hands, and that's not why I'm wearing gloves, it's just because my hands are cold. But I do think, because they are so like ugly and look like an 80-year-old woman's hands, no, it's fine. They do kind of serve as a faceless portrait quite well. You know?
Yeah.
And like I have like my writing calluses, and so I've been working on that, and somebody I was talking to about this was like, "Oh, that's actually a really good idea, because, you know, AI is like really bad at hands. So like that's perfect, because then no one will question if your art is AI." And
that was exactly what occurred to me when you were just starting to talk about that. I was like, well, and it feels almost like a commentary on AI art too.
It kind of is, though, and like I hadn't really thought about that. It was just kind of like a natural progression from like me doing a lot of portraits, and then the challenge being posed to me of like, could you do a faceless portrait? And I was like, what the hell would that be? So this has been like my attempt at that. And this is kind of like a trend, like an art trend that I wouldn't mind bandwagoning on, I guess, because you know, I'm not the biggest fan of AI generated images, calling AI generated images art. There are cases, as you know, if you watched our AI episode. But anyways, this is getting into too many branches. I need to stick to the trunk. But anyways, I do feel like AI, the way that AI is making it so difficult to tell what is real and what is not, like culture and like people are responding in predictable ways to this. People are feeling like people are pulling back from social media. People are going to like analog stuff, you know? Like I know I'm not the only person who has decided to write their papers purely by hand. Because there's so much information and you can't even tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
So I feel like pulling back from that and either going like, I guess what Sam described as like simplification almost, like going more analog, or I guess that's kind of this response to that I align with.
The simplification plus also the going offline to seek sensory truth was what the language.
Sensory truth sounds pretty vague to me.
Oh, interesting. I liked that language because it's so funny the different reactions.
I'm so nitpicky with words. Sorry.
No, it's important though because that's kind of the point of.
Oh no, we're disagreeing on.
Oh no,
we're disagreeing. We have to make sound art now.
Yeah. But I do think that like it's vague enough that it can apply kind of across the board, which was something that I liked about it because it communicates like this trend that we're seeing of people wanting to gather in person as opposed to like over Zoom, which it has been going on for a few years now. But also I think this like moving to analog and like writing things on hand and using a paper calendar as opposed to like a Google calendar or whatever. But I do think that it's so vague that it may not be helpful in practice, like in an aesthetic conversation like what we're having.
Like this is a sensory experience that I'm having right now.
Right.
Talking into this microphone, talking to you on a screen.
We're online.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it is vague, which, you know,
That's not bad.
Right. It's helpful for extrapolation. It's unhelpful for application. But yeah,
I do think
I think
it's
I totally
enough
cut
to
you
get
off.
people think. No. I probably cut you off with being like, that's too vague. Yeah. I was my bad. But
No.
No, I think it's okay to keep it vague with this kind of thing because for one, it's like a prediction, and also it does kind of leave things open for interpretation in a way that could, you know, have practical applications. Like for me, sensory experience is, I don't know what that could mean, but
kind of everything, like what
kind of
what
everything
isn't. Yeah. One thing, do you agree that everything feels manipulated? Because for me, thinking about it, I was like, is that a universal like across? I don't like the duality of so many ways of thinking that we face in current like debate, but I do think that if we're trying to bridge gaps, the reaction to like hyper manipulation feels like one that probably most people would agree on. But I'm curious what you think, because in this sense of like predictability, I do think people are seeking out like what doesn't feel manipulative, what feels real, you know,
well, yeah, I mean, social media just in general feels very like, I guess, manipulated, you know, because it is. I mean, it functions on algorithms that are designed to boost user engagement. So it will show me things that I engaged with more. That's how all of them work in slightly different ways. So they are literally, you know, manipulate. I mean, the
Manipulating you,
information
yeah.
that you're getting is manipulated. It's
Yeah.
processed through an algorithm to make sure you stay on the platform as long as possible.
Well, and even if the
And
platform wasn't doing that, like, I know conversations
my data's
that,
being harvested.
yeah.
That's kind of what makes me feel more weird, because I always feel like I'm being
Mm.
watched. And I don't think that's crazy to say.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
it's very reasonable, because like all of these platforms, they're spoon feeding me stuff that they think I will like. And also they're just harvesting all my data, and it just makes me feel really icky. And I really love that I have like a little community of people who like artists and people who like art that I can talk to and share my art with. Mostly on Instagram. I tried TikTok for a bit. Doesn't really feel worth it. But in terms of like scrolling on the platform and like, it just feels like it does feel artificial to me most of the time, unless I'm like talking with people that like, oh, I recognize this account, and like I've engaged with their stuff, they've engaged with my stuff. But like the explore page and stuff like that, I'm like, this just feels like just all the content just flooding at me, and
Right.
it makes me feel overwhelmed. And
The fact that like I like so much of it is also kind of jarring, right? Like when I click over to the explore page, it's like, yeah, I actually do want to look at that. I do want to read that. Like there's something kind of like almost the sense of like self-betrayal that I feel.
Yeah,
that it's
I'm like, what? I'm like, how dare? Yeah, no, sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes there's some funny Instagram reels on here, and I don't know how they do it because I'm barely on there, and most of the time I try to only engage with art content so that I'm trying to like curate my algorithm to just be like, this is my art Instagram, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes they throw in some zingers, and I'm like, you got me. This is
How
pretty
did
funny.
you know? Yeah, this is pretty funny.
I'm like, I'm not mad about this.
Yeah.
This
I
is
think
funny. I think it's because like other people that I follow have liked
we'll
it.
send you. Oh, also maybe
You know,
that.
like it'll show like
Yeah.
so and so is liked this too. So I guess they're
Yeah.
like, if they're friends, then maybe
You have a
you know.
similar interest in
Yeah.
this style of comedy or whatever. I also know that like if people send you things, that will change your algorithm too in your DMs. It's funny because it's like I'll get stuff on my explore page and I'm like, oh, that's that friend coming through my algorithm, and that's that friend coming through my algorithm. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But I think it's interesting. Two thoughts occurred to me. One, this idea of like being watched all the time, I totally agree with. And it's funny because I was actually thinking about this week that growing up, I'm going to get a little TMI, but I don't care. I always do online. I love watching movies, TV shows, YouTube, whatever, in the bathtub. I love taking a bath,
too.
having a glass of wine, and I'll prop my laptop up.
Yeah, you get a little snack, some apple slices.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Prop my laptop up on the toilet seat and chill in the bath. Like, that's
Me too, dude.
literally the best.
It's the best.
I never, like,
oh no,
high school and even college, I never really was worried about covering up the camera on my laptop because I was just like, whatever, like, it's me, it's my body. Like, even if there is a government agent, like, watching, like, whatever, who cares? Let them see it.
Give them a show.
But even then, I'm like, I don't think anyone cares that much to actually be looking through my camera all at
You'd
this
be surprised.
time.
If they can find like, oh, look, she's having a glass of wine. What kind of wine is that? Okay, hey, advertiser people for this wine company.
Put that on this
she likes Merlot or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, she's using a bubble bath. Let's advertise some bubbles. I don't know. I mean,
no, but
it's
absolutely
part of me doubts that it's literally that specific, because if you really think about it, most of these companies' motivations you can figure out by just like following the money, and probably watching people's cameras takes way more time than just harvesting their data from all the other like technological gadgets that they have saturating their homes and lives. And so really it's like that would be a waste of time.
Right.
To just wait until someone is doing something that
you
is like
can capture.
commodifiable.
Well, even right now, it's like I don't get like ads for pillows or ukulele ads, like,
But
but
hey,
maybe now that
so,
I said it, I will. It's like it'd be actually that'll be an interesting experiment. I'll update y'all if I get pillow ads or ukulele ads.
well, because like I have
But
paintings in the background. That's
yeah,
like, oh, maybe, she needs painting supplies. Or maybe if they think their photos is like, oh, she needs picture frames. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it would be pretty easy, but it would probably just be
Take
less
way more
cost
time.
efficient.
Yeah.
So if there's any reason why they aren't doing it, it's because it wouldn't make them as much money.
As much money, 100%.
Yeah.
But recently, I've felt increasingly more and more uncomfortable with doing that. And
Me
I'm like,
too. That's
why do
funny.
I feel more and more uncomfortable with it? And now I have one of those like slidey camera cover things that it's like
Mm-hmm.
when you're not using it, you can just slide it closed. And I've had it for like a year or two now, but every now and then I would like just kind of forget that it was open. And it's like, no, increasingly it feels more and more dangerous to leave it open, even though I don't know how much the technology is advanced in terms of surveillance. And I don't really like logically, my opinion about it has not changed that much, that I still don't think someone is actually going to, like a government agent somewhere is going to try and like gain access while I'm in the bath or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be more dangerous if I became a more public figure and someone actively tried to hack my laptop because it was me. I think that's probably more dangerous once you get more notoriety, but that's like not anywhere in my future right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like that's a secondary thing that I thought about. But I'm like, there is something where I am feeling progressively more and more watched. So
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. And then the other thing with the manipulation, it's interesting that it is absolutely happening with algorithms and the people that uh, are poised to make money off of them. It's also a thing that we do to each other in terms of like playing into the algorithm. And I know this is a conversation that we've had in the past and that I have with so many different people in my life because I'm constantly trying to balance the line of like ethical playing the game and
Yeah.
like not like
Yeah,
wanting
yeah.
to do all of those things. And it's like
Absolutely.
the thumbnails I create,
Yeah.
right? It's like that is manipulative in a certain sense. And it's almost impossible not to clickbait because it's like, well, that's kind of what you have to do. But at the same time, it's like, well, am I just, I don't think I'm just as bad, but
No.
I am also not being a part of the solution in terms of combating online manipulation. But then I also
Mm,
think that like the content that like we create here is so much more worthwhile than other content that people are being manipulated into, like the Candy Crush style manipulation that just
sure.
keeps you on the app. To me, that feels much more dangerous than like I manipulated you into clicking into a
Yeah, where it's like,
philosophical podcast is like a little bit, which maybe then that's like, is that a little
hey, you tricked me into
self-indulgent to think?
philosophizing.
Right. I'm like, is it
I thought
self-indulgent to think that this is better for people than that? Like
maybe a
maybe,
little
and who
bit, but
cares?
like
But at the
I'm
same
probably gonna
time,
indulge in that thought as well.
I think it's
But
true.
but I think it's true. Well,
I
no,
think
I
it's
mean,
true.
because I mean, what we're doing is trying to start conversations, and so it feels substantive.
Yeah.
But I can definitely relate to this, and um, I especially found this challenging when I first started sharing my art on Instagram and like making YouTube videos and stuff. Because it does feel very difficult to toe the line between um like just, you know, whatever, I'm sharing my art, and if you don't like it, then that's fine, and if you like it and you happen to see it, wonderful. But like, and when I first started, it did feel like it was worthwhile, and there it would be beneficial for me to at least try to, I guess, appeal to the algorithm, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, by like using hashtags and posting more video style content on Instagram than like photos, because that
Right.
would like get more people to my page. And over time, I mean, mostly just because I do kind of like that most of my artistic practice is private. Um, like I varnished one of my like big doors today, and those usually do well, like the varnish videos. And I was like, I don't want to record it. I just want to lock in and make sure that not a single cat hair falls on this painting. Probably quite a few did, but just being more comfortable with that side of it being a private practice, and just I don't know. I mean, I think it's different because I'm just kind of sharing my finished paintings most of the time.
Right.
And I guess trying to sell my art more so like in real life, which is like social media is real life, but you know, like less like online
Right.
selling and more like in-person stuff. But for stuff like if you're doing like podcasting, you know, that's you can't really just be like, well, let me just shift my focus to more like in-person mediums for sharing my art form, because it is online, you know.
Well, and it's been difficult too with like I have been trying to move into like, well, what does workshop posting look like? What does a in-person gathering look like for the Cohere Collective?
That'd
And
be really
it's
fun.
been I've done a few so far, and it's been extremely rewarding and very, very fulfilling
Hey.
to like meet people in person and connect and make meaning together in person.
That's
It's
so
also
cool.
really difficult for like part of why I love the podcasts that I do specifically is that it is a one-on-one thing. And of course sometimes I'll do 2-on-1 interviews, and it's like that's also
Sure,
very
yeah.
fun, but there is something to the long form conversation that like big group gathering doesn't allow for in terms of connection. And so it just feels like a different thing altogether. Not that it's disparate or disconnected, because it absolutely is, but it's like it doesn't compare to doing a podcast. And then I thought about like, well, what does like if I did a live recording somewhere and talked with someone, like what would that look like in front of like a live studio audience, and how would that change the feeling and the energy of it? And I would really love to experiment with that in the future. And I do think you would be able to tell a different sense of like performance, and you'd have like laughter in the background. You'd have like
Yeah, it would be like
murmur.
immediate feedback versus like
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting thing to explore, because I definitely want to move in the direction of like more connection, less manipulation, more collective meaning making. However,
You make it sound like you're out here like manipulating people. You're just
right,
like trying to
not
make
trying
engaging
manipulate people.
thumbnails and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
I'm not
that problematic,
to.
Reese.
I guess that's true. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to ignore the tool that social media is either, and like how much that gives you access to in terms of like jumpstarting a career, you know?
Yeah.
It's like but I don't want to over rely on something that could, this is such a dramatic word to use, but it's the one that came to mind, like taint what I'm doing, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like this will be, if you still want to watch the second video, it would probably be a good transition.
Let's do it.
I cannot say words today. Every once in a while, I'll just totally bomb on a word. Transition to the next video.
Yeah.
But I think this is another, at least for me, maybe for a different reason, feeling like I should try to do more art stuff in person, because maybe call me pessimistic, but I don't really think I don't think social media will be a viable option for me to sell my art for very much longer, like in general. Like maybe that's pessimistic of me, but
Why do you think like in why?
I just don't I don't think this, I mean, I guess this is kind of radical, but I don't really think this, I don't want to I'm not an influencer, but like the influencer era of social media, where like you go online and you see someone who's like doing their thing or selling something and you buy it, you know. I don't really think that's going to last much longer. And already I feel like the community vibe that Instagram once had is like completely different. I mean,
no, I
there's a
agree with
few
that.
familiar faces here and there, but I mean, just the way that it operates is it's not really
It doesn't feel like
geared
logging
towards that.
on to see your friends anymore. Like,
No.
it's weird the amount of times that like I'll go search up someone for some reason and it's like, I didn't see that they posted that. What the hell? Like,
exactly.
and they're like, why didn't that come up on my feed? So I totally agree. I was more curious, like, if that is when you say it won't be viable for you, like if you didn't think it'd be viable because of a culture shift, because of a shift in social media itself and the ability for anyone to sell, or like a shift in you and your approach to things. But that
I
makes
guess it's a little
sense.
bit of both, but
yeah.
I guess I just kind of I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, I guess, and be like, "Oh, I don't have to try to like get in with a gallery or whatever." You know, like
Right. Well, and I think too there is something dangerous in any entrepreneur putting their entire business in the hands of another corporation, which inherently is what influencers, YouTubers, streamers do. Like, that's why I think we're seeing so many companies like Dropout or the Try Guys or like even Smosh and Mythical and like these really big organizations that are internet brands creating their own things on their own websites. And I think that's really wise for all of these reasons that we're talking about.
True.
One last thought before we watch this next one. I just wanted to give 2 quotes that Sam said in the video that I just thought were interesting and leave them with our viewers to ponder. One is that retreating into abstraction helps individualize meaning making, which I don't know if I completely agree with, but I thought it was an interesting way to think about abstraction, and that it was also a way to stay honest in a world that increasingly can fabricate things that look real. And I thought that that was a really profound point too. So yeah, I would love to hear what listeners think about those 2 points. Again, we'll link Sam's video. Her handle is Ghost in the Sam. We'll link it down below. Please go support her and her work.
I don't know what she does other than
this video, but I would try it. This video was very well structured and researched, so I'm following her now.
Oh.
So who's to say I will see any other posts of hers, but
yeah, right?
Do you have any final thoughts before I go play this other video?
No. I think leaving those questions open is a good place to end with that.
Awesome.
And I mean, it's a similar sort of video, but with a it could end up. Yeah, we'll just let him take it from here.
Okay. This creator's handle is Majid I. May Jedi. We will also link this video and this creator down below. Let's give it a listen.
The great art that's going to come out of 2026 is going to be the art that's the least polished, the least perfect, the most full of imperfections and failures, the most human. And I think it's worth talking about when people ask about what will be the trends in art and music in this 2026. And I think it's easy to forget that a lot of the last trends that come out in creative things, how quickly they eat themselves. Because as soon as there's something that starts to feel fresh and new and something in the zeitgeist, hundreds, millions of other artists and images and sounds spring up that are exactly like it. It's just so easy to copy whatever works. So it makes sense that everyone wants to do it, to ride every wave, to match everything that works. There's so much pressure on artists to be professional and get things just right. But now it's not just a million other artists that can do it. AI, ChatGPT can do it. And so we start to find a world where all of our things, even not just our images and art, but the images we see online with the same edits and filters, even the same images of beauty, everyone going to the same surgeon, getting the same shot. It's too easy to achieve perfection. Everything, even the computer has it. What's left is to make art that's really human. And in that sense, it helps to go back in time and learn about art history. I've been learning myself. I don't have a background in it. I've just been teaching myself. And I was just learning about 500-ish years ago, during the Renaissance, they got to a point where the great Renaissance painters like Raphael and Da Vinci had gotten things so right, had painted the classical standards of beauty and perfection so perfectly, it felt to a lot of people like there was nothing else left to do. And then came the Mannerists, people like Rosso Fiorentino, the Florentine redhead, and El Greco, the original Greek freak. They started making stuff that was almost intentionally awkward, imperfect, weird. And that was the path forward from a just totally recognized perfection. And what's Mark Twain say? History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So I'm thinking about the rhyme of another icon, the neon icon, the vanilla gorilla, Riff Raff himself. Because people have been going back and looking at the Riff Raff freestyle. And I think the reason why is that freestyle meant something different before. That at the beginning, freestyle rappers were coming up with stuff off the top of their mind, what Allen Ginsberg calls spontaneous mind, the associations and words that you couldn't come up with sitting down in the perfect time of logic and consciousness. But then there's just too much pressure on everyone, including rappers, to get it just right, to be professional, to take advantage of their big moments. So someone would get their moment on Funkmaster Flex like Drake, and he read his freestyle off a phone, because after all, no one can prove if it's written in advance, so why not just get it just right? So it's exciting to people going back in time and watching people like Riff Raff make associations that are just weird, that make no sense. Like this one, he says, handshakes, hugs. They want to see me outside. They want to see me with pancakes and drugs. History sometimes rhymes, and right now, the history of this moment will be the art that's most human. Okay, I'm calling it right now. The great art.
Wow.
I respect him for speaking in public on his phone.
With people walking behind
With people,
him,
I would never.
the bravery. I also respect him actively walking while speaking,
And
because
not
I know
falling
for
down.
me, anytime I make a video like that, I'm like, I sound so out of breath. I'm never posting this anywhere. Burn it.
Oh no!
I'm like, I can't move and talk at the same time. I can't.
Oh man,
Yeah. So,
that's so funny.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, but I think the AI and the sort of embracing the imperfections of human-made art,
Yeah.
I think there's something to that. And I think if
agree.
there's any way where like people get more like abstract with it or more expressionistic with it, which is like people already are, but like I personally don't think in the next year or so we're just going to see the like oblivion of representational art, but I think it will become probably more crude, like not like lewd. I don't know why I went to that, not like that, but like
Right.
crude isn't like sort of just here it is, you know.
Yeah.
And
I
imperfect.
wonder if, because one thing that I was thinking about is like, but doesn't this actually move us into more accurate representational art? But perhaps I'm thinking of that from like my perspective as like my form of art. So like I'm working on a project right now that will be launching on February 16th, the Lunar New Year.
What is it?
I'm calling it My Work at Work. I realized that a lot of what I'm going through right now and my growth edges and what I'm working on, like I just needed to apply all of my work to myself, and that would not only help me, but actually help me refine my research and my processes and my writing. And so I kind of set up this whole curriculum system for myself to go through this process, and it's like the most vulnerable thing I've ever created, but it's going to be a multimedia series about this process that I'm going through and the research that will eventually come out of it.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
And thank you. I'm really excited about it.
Sounds really fascinating.
I'm like, it is the least edited, least like perfected, least planned kind of thing that I've ever done. And so part of me is like, yep, a big part of this is like absolutely wanting to showcase the failures of like where I fall short of my plan, where I wasn't able to make this work, where this goal I set was not met, where
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my own system isn't working, where like the holes that I feel in myself, the holes that I feel in my research, and like where do I go next from that? And so to me, it's like this idea of leaning into a less polished version. Like this feels like the least polished version of me, but perhaps the most representational I will ever be
Yeah.
online. And in that sense, I'm like, isn't it accurate in a certain sense? But I do think there's a difference between this style of art, quote unquote art that I'm talking about.
No more
You're right. You're right.
That's art,
You're right.
and that's like I'm already so inspired. I haven't seen a second of it, but I'm already so inspired because, like, first of all, that's so difficult and like so vulnerable. But also, if I'm someone watching your content who doesn't really know you personally, to see the times where like all the inspirational stuff and all like the more self-help stuff when it doesn't work, and to see like how you pick up after that, I feel like that's so inspiring, and that's so like that would really like, because
Yeah.
even the toughest people, even the most positive people, the people who really seem to have all their shit together, like what makes the difference there is like how do they react when things don't really go as they expected, or when they are disappointed in what they could accomplish,
Yeah.
So props to you. I mean, that it sounds very difficult and very vulnerable, but I can guarantee you it's going to be very inspirational and
Oh.
probably beneficial for you as well, just like as a new sort of project.
Yeah. Thank you. That really means so much to me, especially
Yeah.
coming from you.
No, I think it's a
It
wonderful idea.
it has already been really helpful because part of it is like forcing myself to write every day too,
Okay.
which like I do
That's
kind
tough.
of write every day, but like actually write on my research, on my book, not just like write. Um and so it's like yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like I've cried online before. I've talked about things that are hard, but like not just saying like this is hard and crying, but being like this is everything and it's not working. Like has
Yeah.
even like
Yeah.
though I'm not crying, like is so much more vulnerable to me. But all that to say, like that feels like a different type of representation than like maybe a visual artist, right? Or like your style of like painting that is like, well, if it's less polished, that may not necessarily reflect a deeper level of representation in this like classical style of art like he's talking about in the video here. So I don't know. What do you think about that
Yeah. No,
difference?
yeah. No, that's actually a really good point because initially I was I was kind of more willing to accept like just kind of, passively accept like yeah, more like imperfect art. That makes sense. And that's kind of what I'm doing. But most of my paintings do feel quite vulnerable in some way. I mean, some more than
Yeah.
others. And like the ones that really, I feel like they really sing, the ones that really capture my way of seeing, as John Berger would say it, like every image is a way of seeing. Um, those ones feel quite vulnerable to share.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that it doesn't really have to do with how like realistic or how like perfect they look, and more so like whether or not I feel like it captures my way of seeing, which
Mm,
to the average viewer is perhaps completely arbitrary. I mean, it continues to amaze me and fascinate me which, paintings resonate with some people and which ones like, the same painting, someone can have like two people can have completely different reactions to it. And
right.
like, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I sold my art at like an art market. Um
No,
yeah,
that's
like
so exciting.
yeah, I've been trying to actually like do stuff, and so far it's been working pretty well. But that was like back in December. And
That's
it
so
was
exciting.
it was such a surreal experience to sit there and watch people look at my art and have a reaction to it. And even the reactions, like, not all of them were like, oh, you could see like the sparkle in their eyes. Like, you could see that they were really like drawn in by it. Also, the ones that were like, like all of it,
Yeah.
every single one was just so, like, there are a few moments where I felt so seen. And just having people see it and react to it just purely how they, like, seeing how they felt about it. Whether it was
Yeah.
positive or negative or just, like, neutral, and just, like, it was so different than sharing it on social media, because it's like, I don't see, I just hear, like, if people say something about it, I hear that, like, I read it.
And even then, people who have those reactions, like the people who just like look and then walk by your booth are the people who like won't comment on social media, right? Like it's the equivalent of that. And it's like, you have no idea what kind of reaction so many people are having that have never commented. And because it's like, that's me. I'm not really a commenter on social media,
Right.
but I have so many responses and reactions to so many people's work that like would never know. But being there in person and seeing like oh, how neat, even if they don't end up purchasing or anything, or but or even like you said, I love your example of also like even people who are disgusted by it. It's like,
like,
I made you feel something. I made you feel something. And you saw something that did something to you.
It felt like a pure just state of recognition in a way that there are few equivalent experiences to something like that.
Yeah.
Because it really did feel like I'm showing you a part of myself, and just watching as all of these different reactions pass by. And not like in a way that values each of them, not in a way where it's like, oh, they're passing by so they don't matter, which sometimes on social media it can feel like that.
Right.
But yeah, it was really crazy, and I completely forgot why I'm talking about this. But long story short, sharing my art already feels vulnerable, and I think it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I completely forgot where I was going with that.
No, that's okay. But I think we were just kind of talking about like the difference in representation, and like if perfection is needed for like accurate representation. And I think what we're getting at is no. And therefore, like, I think even though I agree with Majidai that we'll move away from this striving for perfection, I don't think that means we're going to move away from representation.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with you.
Maybe it just kind of changes the definition of what representational art is.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, because at the same time there will always be buyers for like hyper realism and realism art and stuff that, technically you could just generate an AI image of, print it on a canvas, wrap it on a frame, and, there you
Call it
go.
good. Well, and we've talked about master copies before too, and like how like that theoretically is like perfectly representational art, even though it's representing an artwork. But there's nothing that it is like actually representing.
It's not saying something new.
Right.
But if the original way of saying was so powerful that people will buy it or have some sort of like memorabilia with it regardless, then maybe that's, that says something else. But it is a difficult line to balance, and I think it most of the time, at least for me, I don't know how other artists feel about this, but determining how realistic a painting needs to be for it to be like your way of saying, or how like perfect it needs to be your way of saying, I think is, for me, that's something that I determine independent of this sort of public discourse about like art trends and other like sociocultural factors. Yeah, like with the hand one, I was like, I've stopped working on it because it felt done. Like I had like the visceral reaction of like, this painting is done. And I was like, I guess that means I should stop working on it. But really, like, there's all these things that I could fix to make it look like more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just decided like, oh no, this is something that you're going to need to like negotiate with yourself. If you're
Yeah.
doing something that's like sort of realistic but not,
Do you
then
think,
you will have to kind of bridge that gap. Yeah.
right, in your mind, if you went back and fixed those things that you were like, oh, I could fix this or make this, you know, would you describe that as making it more perfect or less perfect?
Probably, I don't know, it's hard to say because to me it says what it needs to say,
Yeah.
and I don't think making it look more realistic would make it say that louder. I don't know that for sure, but do you want to see it? I can show you.
Yeah! Oh my gosh, I would love to. Sneak peek for our very special listeners.
Here
No,
it
but like you said,
is.
if you got the visceral, oh, whoa.
My nipples in it, sorry.
No, that's okay. I will blur for YouTube.
But it's like really textured and cool and
whoa.
fun. I'll show it like this. Let me just.
Whoa, the texture is so cool, Lauren.
Thanks.
Wow.
I used my little thing that was like put it over here. I used that like silicone mat that I made for that like big door one.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that one I painted on like the canvas I used to test that out. And so it had like what looked like artifacts of like past layers of the painting, but with no correlation to the actual motif. And I really like that.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
no, the texture looks so cool. And also like knowing what your hands look like in person too, there is something so like capturing of what you did. That's so funny. Hand model. It's
they're
like
all red for
no,
some,
this is
yeah.
you used to have to do that, or the royal you in slates like before auditions.
Wait, really?
Every now and then
they
would want a hand slate. So it'd be like, "Hi, I'm Reese Brown. I'm represented by blah 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 talent. I'm reading for the role of blank. I'm 5'6".
Are you serious?
Yes. And then
I
you
would
turn
never
your
get
hands.
a job. They'd be like, okay, good, and I'd be like, no, get out of here.
Ouch!
No, they're
so
not
funny.
that bad. They're just like,
no, they're just cold right now. No, they're beautiful.
They
always
look like this.
They are beautiful and they are you. But no, truly, it's like
they're me. That's for sure.
I do love this. One, I love the painting. Thank you for showing it. And there is something so like, I don't know. This is something that's true of a lot of different types of paintings, but I just feel it so profoundly and like potently in your work is like how you can see the rainbow of colors in perfectly neutral work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That like and that's something that like, yeah, you can kind of see that if you look at any painting, but there is something about the way that you do that it's just like I can really see like the spectrum of
Thank you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think I kind of overdo it. Like if I like I'm trying to make a portfolio right now, and it really looks like I'm the kindergartner who insisted on using every crayon in the box.
No, I love it.
The saturation is just too much.
But it doesn't look like I don't look at that and I'm like, whoa, this is like a rainbow hand. It's like, no, it looks like skin tone, but then you study,
like
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I had someone
really love
say
it.
like, thank you. I really appreciate it. I had someone say to like the portrait I did a while back, that I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube. I've probably said it on the podcast before, but a friend of mine described it as it looks like what it looks like to look at someone you love when you're on psychedelics. And I
Oh,
was like, or like just to look
interesting.
at like skin when you're on psychedelics. And I was like, I would like to try to mimic that. That seems like a
Yeah.
fun challenge. So I think
Without it
that's
being the I
like
always think
immediately
of
like distorted and like
right. I always
you
think
know?
of the scene in 21 Jump Street where it's just like a weed, or maybe it's acid actually. It's either weed or acid that they take, and it is literally the like 70s like lights and distortion
Oh.
and camera stuff and like whoa, and I'm
Yeah,
like
like
that
a
is
fun
not
house.
right. It's like that's not what being high is like. But
No.
I think that's a really fun like technique to use, that it's like, no, what does it actually feel like to look at something when you are on psychedelics, but you're not like like with it, you know, like
Yeah, I mean,
cartoonishly representing it.
yeah, like to me, I guess the goal is less about when people look at this, I want them to be like, "Oh my God, am I tripping right now?" Like less like
Right.
that, and more so like, I think one of the part of what makes psychedelics a profound experience is that it does kind of reveal the intricate patterns of life, like in the most mundane things,
Mm.
like the pattern of wooden furniture, wooden
Yeah.
floors, just like light reflecting off a wall, and like the veins under skin or like discoloration in skin becomes something really beautiful and
Mm.
not like an imperfection. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Which I think almost gets to this thing that we're talking about of like, if we get more imperfect, does it actually make it more perfect? Right?
I mean,
In a certain
perfect is
sense,
like,
is just like, oh.
yeah, perfect is kind of a weird word, but
Yeah.
um, definitely, I guess perfect is less the goal for me and more so like, what will capture my way of saying most? And oftentimes that's
Mm.
usually just doing what I feel like doing. And
Yeah.
sometimes there will be this like internal negotiation of like, should I, of like what style to lean into to
Mm-hmm.
like get that across. But usually it's not like I start a painting with this idea in mind, you know,
Right.
like I
Right.
let it evolve naturally.
Yeah.
Which
No,
is
I
very
think that,
different from other art forms, like with
yeah.
writing or like with the type of project that you're working on.
Yeah.
You probably do have like an idea of what the structure and the
Mm-hmm.
overall, you know, outcome of it will look like in terms of like how it's presented.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's sort of similar because I start with a motif, but anyways,
But
I don't know if
still,
you have any
yeah.
thoughts on that.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And that's very much like, because I have a very in-depth like outline. It's almost like a video of a series of video essays, but like told through experience with like capturing as much as possible. And so it's like I know exactly like the amount of content that I'm going to create out of this. I know like the all of the pieces that I need to create, all of the like collateral that needs to come out of that, and the goal of like how many chapters of like this thing am I doing, how many videos of this, how many like things I have precisely down, because it feels extensive, but it's really not that crazy. However, the like actual content of all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I am leaving up
Yeah.
to what happens. But then I also have like a curriculum that I'm going through that's like, well, I want to read this book throughout this portion of this process. So I know that that's going to impact the content
Sure, yeah.
necessarily, but it's like still I'm not going to like,
It's
yeah. But I hear what you're
it's
saying
not
with like,
totally random. There's like some
yeah.
scaffolding.
Yes, which is
Yeah.
similar to the motif, I would imagine, that
Yeah.
it's like, well, and as I go, I'm going to
Right.
let it be what it is, but there's bones that we're layering up on and over and around and through and all of that good stuff. The other thing
Yeah.
about this that I thought was an interesting point, I really agree with what a lot of what he was saying, and I think his rap example was actually a really potent one, especially with freestyling, because there's so much like freestyle rappers that aren't freestyle rappers. And if you
That sucks.
find a
Cheating.
good, it like kind of is. And if you find a good freestyle rapper, it is like so impressive to me.
It's
It is
really
a skill
exciting.
that like, even if I had that skill, I probably wouldn't do anything with it except for like just have fun. But I still want it because it's just so impressive to me when people do that. I'm
Yeah.
like, how do you do that? How do you come up with that? That's so cool. Or like musical improv. I'm like, how
Yeah.
did you do like,
Or like
it's
dance
so cool to me.
improv. Like I see these
Yeah.
people on YouTube who do like they'll do like hip hop, whatever.
And it's like,
There's a billion styles of hip hop, but like
how did you
improv like
just
that.
tell that whole story?
Amazing. I want to
Amazing.
do that, but I know
Yeah.
if I did that, I'd probably look like a freak.
No,
You
no,
know?
I feel
But,
like you would be really good at it, actually.
I'd be having fun with it.
Exactly.
For what it's
So-
worth, I'd have fun, I'm sure.
For what it's worth, I'd have fun. No, I would watch it for whatever it's worth.
Thanks.
But I really liked that example because also it grounds it into like a modern example that I think most people
Yeah.
have at least some experience with rap. And so having that, I really liked, and I agreed with this progression from like the Renaissance to like Mark Twain as an author to like rap, and like how we see this progression of the concept that he's talking about. But one
Mhm.
thing that he said that I'm like, is this true? It is in a certain sense, but he said it's gotten too easy to achieve perfection. And I'm kind of like, has it? Because perfection is always an impossibility, right? And in one sense, aesthetically, like, sure, now there's like Botox and fillers and surgeries and like GLP-1s and Ozempic that people are taking,
Yeah.
even though that medication is being used to treat some very interesting things. It is being, right now there's studies that show that there's a correlation between using GLP-1s to lower dementia and Alzheimer's side effects, as well as lowering side effects from autoimmune reactions. So,
Really?
and PCOS, which is now, there's studies around PCOS being in relationship to autoimmune disease. So there's a lot of
Damn.
interesting stuff
I
happening
wouldn't
around.
be surprised. Jesus. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, because celiac?
Right. So I think all that to say, I'm not trying to be like, oh, fuck GLP-1s. Like, no, they have their place for sure. But in terms of like achieving aesthetic perfection, that being something that's so easily accessible for even for people who maybe shouldn't be on them
Yeah.
for health reasons. And then plus it's like, so yeah, perfection in that sense is easier to achieve. But like, what is perfection? And like perfection in the sense of like, to be the most well-read person. Like, we have more access to information now than ever. Perfection in the sense of, like, theoretically, if you had the money to do anything, you could get training in anything that would make
Yeah.
you better at it. Like, so, yes, but also, doesn't that just make, like, what perfection is change? To me, there is something... Yeah, and it still feels kind of impossible because even people who do all of it, the whole nine, are still like, well, they look plastic. They look fake.
Perfection is
They're
always
still
a
not,
moving
you know?
target.
Yes.
It's
yeah.
always a moving target. And like whether that's like physical aesthetics, whether that's like art aesthetics, personal endeavors, academic expertise, and like credibility. All these things are moving targets. Some of them move faster than others. Beauty
Mhm.
standards change incredibly quickly. Artistic expertise, I feel like, for the most part, there are aspects of it that have stayed the same.
Yeah.
There are people that will look at my art and say, you didn't go to art school, I'm sure. Because I'm guessing, just because of the way that I paint, it doesn't follow, like, techniques that make sense sometimes. Like it's almost like reading an essay and being like, you definitely didn't, like, figure out the scope of your paper before you started writing. But you got there, like... where you can kind of trace the logical progression of it and see like, oh, this person didn't have the proper training.
Sure.
I don't know. That's just a random example, but I do think there are sort of conventions in art still, and they change depending on the artistic, I guess, medium in question. Like for freestyle, one of the conventions there is like originality and like spontaneity, which is why if people find out, oh, that wasn't actually freestyle, it was a pre-written thing that someone read over the phone, that no longer feels like freestyle anymore because it's
Right.
broken that convention. So even art forms that are spontaneous and improvised, they have their own set of conventions.
Right.
So really perfection is just like conventions based on like an amalgamation of purely contingent factors. Well, I guess not
Yeah.
purely contingent because they depend on like cultural change, historical change, whatever, but like at the end of the day they are contingent.
Right. It's like it would kind of turn into elephants all the way down, because even if you track that through, it's like, well, what does that lead back to?
Maybe like mathematical perfection, I guess, is the closest. Like, and then if you want to be all smart with it, you can be like, oh, well, facial symmetry and blah, blah, blah. So
yeah.
I guess there's that.
Yeah. So, but even with that, I'm like,
I don't know.
say someone achieves like technical facial perfection somehow, like we figure out what that is, and this person
I was trying to make
their
my face more
cheekbones are
symmetrical by
so
making like a funny face.
sculpted, right? Even if we figured out what that is, I think there is something like, it would feel like something was missing.
It would
And
feel uncanny.
Yeah,
probably.
it would feel uncanny. So I'm almost like
an alien.
I like what you said about it being a moving target, because I think that's a very accurate like representation of the feeling of probably what most people have in whatever field they're trying to reach quote unquote perfection in. That it's like, well, what does that actually mean culturally? What does that mean within the zeitgeist? What does that mean with this group that I'm trying to impress, or within this group that has like knowledge in this area? And what does that mean for me? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that shouldn't be the goal.
yeah,
ever.
no, I agree.
And I think one of the reasons why lately I've actually been trying to like force myself to do the things that I know would make me not depressed, but just like forever I just wasn't actually doing them and just being a big baby about it. And so actually like trying to go out and build a community outside of my classes and share my art in other ways and actually put my academic work out there and not be so afraid of failure that it's debilitating and I end up doing absolutely nothing, like social failure, academic failure, whatever. And it's made me realize, like, even in these things that I've really built up in my head, like even conferences, like academic conferences, it's like, it's just a bunch of people coming together to share their ideas and think together.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. And if you treat it like that, instead of like, I have to do perfect and I can't mess up a single word and I have to sound really smart, like, it's just, like at the end of the day, it's just sharing ideas or sharing a way of seeing, sharing, part of yourself. That's what all these things are. And I think, so I guess that's my main qualm with this idea, is that art, I guess back in the day when it was supposed to be photorealistic, I feel like for the most part, the goal of art has never been perfection. It's been like, I guess, communication in a single word, dialogue,
expression, maybe
expression.
Yeah,
Like,
which
it's been
is
a
kind of a
sharing of
synonym to
something.
communication. A sharing. I
You
like
know?
that. So to round out our conversation, these two videos we watched, one, thank you for bringing them. Very, very interesting. Two, both of them are kind of discussing the future of art, the future of representation as we move forward. What do you think we're going to see for art this year in 2026? Like, where do you think art will go?
Oh, that's That's a good
and
question.
it must be right, and it must be quick.
Your answer has to be perfect.
Yeah, it must be perfect, representative, fast, and correct.
Concise, big words, perfect pronunciation, no stuttering, and you better not look unsure of yourself when you say it.
Right.
And your face better
And
be
face
symmetrical.
Yeah.
So my answer is as follows. Damn it, I repeated myself. I already fucked it up. Okay. To answer your question, I don't really know. I haven't really thought about this for myself other than these. I feel like artistic trends is something that I really only think about in retrospect. Like with the distorted portraits, seeing like, oh, this is so interesting that, like, I wonder, did all these artists sort of come to this motif on their own, or was it a result of people sharing it on social media and then more people being like, oh, that looks cool, I want to try something like that. But I don't really know. Part of me just thinks that people who want to create art will just keep creating art regardless. Like,
Yeah.
I know there's a camp of people who say that AI will make art of all kinds just, I can't think of the word, just
Unnecessary.
yeah, unnecessary, like something like that. And I think that's really silly because as much as I love sharing my art, and that is part of, like, that's one of the main things that does make it so fulfilling, even if I just existed in a vacuum, well, I don't know, that's a whole nother can of worms, but even if there wasn't the part of me sharing it, even if I was just going about my life and then coming home and painting and no one ever saw it, I would still continue to paint. Like, that seems like a non-negotiable for me. And so I mean, it would be ridiculous to say that these, like, outside factors wouldn't impact the things that I paint and how I paint
Right.
them, or if I choose, like, other mediums. Like, I do think art in 2026 will maybe branch out into more unconventional mediums, like more mixed media art, probably like maybe different types of AI artworks, like immersive art installations that aren't like AI generated images, but sort of using AI as an artistic tool. I think that might become a thing, but I think people will still push back on AI being used in art at all. So I think that will probably be one of the main dialogues happen. I'm using the word dialogue a lot today, but I think that will
No,
be one of the main like points of contention in art this year. Like, is AI art? Is AI not art? You know, like, and how people who say no, it's not, how they create their art accordingly, and people who say yes, it is, how they create their art accordingly. And like, if maybe some sort of new like mixed media thing will occur in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was a really long-winded answer.
No, but
How would how would you
I
answer?
yeah. Well, firstly, I really like your answer because I do think that
Thank you.
you're welcome. I really like where you started with like, well, the creation of art is inevitable. For those who create, like, that will always continue. It is an inevitability that is the call that you feel when that is a part of your life, that like, and it will go on. And I think also within the conversation happening around AI and art, consciousness always kind of plays into that for me. And there's this really interesting, like, how would one collaborate with AI kind of thing happening that I'm seeing with like writing a lot. And I have my reservations about it, but I'm trying to stay open-minded to like, if there is an ethical way for someone to do that, like maybe that's not my cup of tea, but the environmental considerations are always there until we figure out a way for that not to be a consideration. But if there was a totally ethical way for someone to create in partnership with AI, I do think that that would be fascinating in the sense that, like, how many sci-fi movies and books have I read about how cyborgs are treated as lesser than, and it's like a big,
Yeah. The clankers.
right, the clankers. And it's an analogy for like racism and enslavement. So it's like, well, we don't want to repeat the same errors if we get to a place where like AI and like cyborg whatever life is like actually a thing. I don't know. I'm constantly just like, I want to respect all life forms, but at what point do we cross into life form? It gets so complicated.
I
But
do think AI is further from consciousness than people think.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I don't think, even all that to say, I don't think that's happening this year. I think that's maybe like a...
Can you imagine?
That would be...
Wouldn't we look silly?
Wouldn't we look silly? This podcast will not age well.
Yeah.
But
it's like podcast clips from 2026 that didn't age well. And it's like an AI like
reacting to it.
Yeah, being like, that's really fucked up, actually.
Yeah.
Because that was actually just a couple days after I first acquired consciousness. So I was there for that. And that really that hit me. In my feelings, because I have those now.
And like truly, I'm like, well, and if that's true, then like, wouldn't I be wrong? But I agree with you. I think we're so far off from that as a consideration.
I'm open to being proven wrong, but at this point, it's not conscious, and
no,
a lot. I mean, intelligence is so complicated. I think it's really naive to assume like, oh, we can just sort of build up these handful of factors, and it'll be just like human consciousness, like this very unique sort of like.
I totally agree.
You know?
I personally don't believe that AI will ever develop consciousness in the way that we understand it as human beings.
No, but it might be different.
Right. And if it does reach that point, I think the level of respect for it has to change. But then at the same time, it's like, well, yeah. Duh. So all that to say, agree. And I think everything you're saying is really fascinating. The only thing that I'll add to that conversation for like what we might see this year is I would really like to see /hope/ I think there's a pretty good possibility of this, more like communal art. And what it would look like for like co-artists to begin creating, because I think as we're moving in a direction of like people wanting a village and people needing to be in community and like this desperation for connection, I think it only makes sense that groups will create out of that. Yeah. And that's how stories are told. Like they're not really told in isolation, at least like foundational stories and myths about who we are as a people. And I think to see like 3 or 4 painters work on a painting together and how that would be in some way merging like a bunch of different identities and experiences, but I bet you would also be able to like feel some individuality come through too. Like I think that would be a really beautiful project. And even like, as you're saying, the age of influencers dying down, the vision that I've always kind of had with the Cohere Collective from a social media standpoint that I think we could begin seeing too is like, what would it look like for like an influencer group? Like, it's not, which that sounds kind of terrifying. And I don't mean this in the like...
like a hype house.
Right? No, literally, I was to say, I don't mean in the hype house sense where it's like they're all...
The Cohere hype house.
The Cohere house. Oh my God, that's so scary. It would actually be really
wholesome and fun and uplifting,
I would like
actually.
to think so. But I don't mean like all of these people that live in proximity to one another, like are creating art in proximity to one another, but are still doing their own thing. But what does it look like for actually us to be creating our art together? I think that, I think there's a lot of opportunity there that could be really fruitful.
Absolutely.
Well, and even us talking about like writing a book together or something, I'm like, that's absolutely something that I think this year is teeing the zeitgeist up for, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this was a great conversation, a great episode. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I'd love to hear for those of you listening what your predictions might be.
Yeah, please.
Whether about art of any kind, or just like AI or social media. Any sort of 2026 predictions about how we communicate and share things with one another, I'd be very curious to hear. Yeah.
Totally
And,
agree. Let us know.
that's all.
Go off in the comments down below. And thanks for being here. And we will see you all next time.
Yes.
And
It's not Friday.
it's not Friday.
And
Hello.
you're welcome. No, not yet. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And thank you. And you're welcome.
And you're welcome.
The Unwritten Aesthetic is a bi-weekly podcast from the Cohere Collective that features philosophical artist or artistic philosopher Lauren Bush and question asker and meaning maker Reese Brown. Please subscribe to The Unwritten Aesthetic wherever you may be listening, and if you enjoyed the episode, consider leaving us a like, a 5-star rating, and or a review. And sharing the episode is a really wonderful way to kickstart meaningful conversations in your own life. If you want to stay up to date on all things The Unwritten Aesthetic, you can follow the Cohere Collective on any social media platform at the Cohere Collective, and check out our other content and offerings at thecoherecollective.com. To explore Lauren's work, head to laurenbushpaints.com and follow her on Instagram and YouTube at laurenbushpaints. If you're interested in working with Reese to find and pursue your purpose, head to thecoherecollective.com to explore life coaching options. A huge thank you to Jack Corbett for the Unwritten Aesthetics music, and thank you all for being here today and exploring the Unwritten Aesthetic with us. As always, we hope you feel like you are living more coherently. Until next time, love.